Oh, that's cute. And my picture down on the...
Yeah, that's nice. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Proactive Health Collective of Keene.
Hello.
I'm Dr. Gene Clerkin, and I'm with Monadnock Natural Health in Keene, New Hampshire, and we are a functional medicine practice, and I have my other colleagues with me. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, go ahead, Tisa.
All right, Dr. Tisa Abatelli with my husband, Dr. Matt Abatelli, and we are with the Cheshire Wellness Center, and we're a holistic, vitalistic chiropractic office, also here in Keene, just on the first floor of where Becky is, because we work in the same building. And we do, like I said, holistic chiropractic, very light force, nothing invasive, but really about focusing and releasing tension in the system to really help you be the best version of yourself. So
Yeah. And I'm Rebecca Montrone. I'm actually, what do you call us, practice partners? Under the care of Drs. Abatelli.
Practice members.
Practice members, okay.
A member of the practice.
Right, and I'll introduce myself in a second, but I just have to say it's really cool what you guys do, because experiencing it myself, it's quite remarkable. And anyway, we'll talk maybe more about that later. But okay, so I am Becky Montrone. I'm a holistic health practitioner, nutritionist. I have a business here at the Miller Forge building on Roxbury Street in Keene. Wondrous Roots, and I see clients in personal consultation for all manners of health issues. I work with nutrients and herbs and lifestyle changes, bioidentical hormones, whatever. We try to never stay within the box and keep learning. So that's me.
Awesome.
Allison? Yeah, I'm Allison Millar. I'm a licensed acupuncturist, and I practice traditional Chinese medicine here in Keene, New Hampshire, with all these wonderful practitioners. Yeah, basically, in a nutshell, acupuncture helps the body heal itself. So that's what we do at my clinic. We just give the body an extra boost. It can oftentimes get over lots of things that even Western medicine doesn't have answers or even diagnoses for. It's a really cool, fascinating medicine that I'm very passionate about. And yeah, I love being part of this group. Dr.
Awesome.
G, introduce yourself, what you do.
Didn't I already?
Oh, sorry.
Do we get Matt yet? Matt, did you?
Well, kind of. Thanks, Dr.
You
Tisa. I'm Dr. Matt Abatelli, who I practice with my wife, of course, here in Keene, Cheshire Wellness Center. It's an evidence-based tonal model of chiropractic. It's a neurological focus. We've been here for 21 years, and Dr. Tisa and I have been carrying the torch since 2018.
Awesome. And, I think the common thread that runs through all of us is we do understand that the body heals itself, and we are looking to intervene in the most gentle and effective way that we can. And we all understand that there's many different windows into getting the body to move and do what it's already built into it to do, which is to heal and to be well. And so we know, as we've talked about in many of the previous episodes, there are many things that in our world today can sort of beat us down and try to interrupt that process. But all these modalities that we've been sharing are amazing to help you. So I thought, today we were going to kind of go off the informational train and get on to a little bit more about kind of what makes us tick, and maybe a little bit of philosophy and really what we're here for, what our purpose is. And, we all have, I think, a similar purpose, but I'm sure we have also differences in what we're really trying to bring to the world with our light. So I thought we might go through and first kind of talk about how do we get into what we're doing? How do we get there, into maybe our profession? And then we could go around and maybe talk about a little bit more about how that translates into what we do in our philosophies and working with people, and maybe what our big picture is. So I'll kind of start off, and just, it's a funny story with me. When I was in high school, I was sort of lost. I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I thought I was going to be an engineer. So I kind of went on that track, and in my first year in college, found myself with 4 Ds and an F, and realized I wasn't really too interested in it. And somebody happened to talk to me about chiropractic, and I said, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And and I found that I did have an aptitude for biology, and my next semester, when I switched my classes to biology and those types of things, I was on the president's list. And so I sort of went down this track of biology major with the idea in my back of my head, maybe I would go to chiropractic school, and but never really thinking I would. And then when it came down to it, when I went to graduate from school, I realized, what am I going to do with a biology degree? I guess I have to continue to go to school. So I did land up going to chiropractic school. And, you know, I think it was one of those, I think it's more of like a fate thing. I was brought there because, you know, once I began to understand that side, which I've never heard the philosophy of that, you know, what I was sharing in the beginning of like, wow, the body heals itself. And it just made so much sense. It was almost like I had been reborn into what my core philosophy was. And, you know, I was lucky enough to really come across some work, and Dr. Sabatelli will tell you a little bit more about this, I think, when they talk about what they're doing. Network spinal analysis, it's had many names over the course of its evolution, but just really amazing work that really brought me into the realm of healing and kind of understanding that whole other side to things, not just that there's this biochemical thing that we're trying to manipulate and fix and change, but really that there's this energetic, spiritual, you know, connection to our source component that is such a huge part. And so I think, you know, in a lot of ways, and even though I am in sort of the biochemical realm as well now in my practice, which I'll share with you in a little bit, that part is a huge influence in how I think. And when I'm working with a client, realizing that there's more to what's happening here than just what the labs say or what the tests show. There's a person, there's a relationship, there's who they are, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. And so that's sort of my basic, you know, as I came through my education and understanding where I am as a practitioner today, that's kind of what, you know, how I got started.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear from the rest of you. Becky, you want to start there?
Well, I was just thinking about what you said about the spiritual and everything that goes in the energy. And that's holistic, okay? Because we aren't one-dimensional. We are, and if we just deal with somebody's, okay, cancer, yeah, maybe glutathione's going to be, maybe something's going to be really good for that, right? But you have to embrace the whole person. And we miss a lot of that in mainstream because there's no room to actually get to know the individual. I also would like to just say, because this isn't answering the question of what sparked me, but I just want to say, like, when it comes to network spinal analysis, because you were talking about that, I've had several people ask me, is this weird? Is this some sort of occultic kind of she woo-woo sort of thing? And I just want to say, no, it is not. And I say that. This is not, it's not even Reiki, okay? This is not. It is very scientific, but it takes, as far as I understand, it takes into account all of the energy. And we know energy is the huge thing that makes people in objects what they are. So this is not.
Energy is all that matters, right? Energy is all that matters. So it's a physics.
I love that. No pun intended there, I'm sure.
Right. But okay, so I am a born again Christian. I believe in the Bible. When people come in here, I don't say, you have to believe like I believe in order for this to work or anything like that. I'm not trying I might share, as that comes up in conversation, but it's not like what I do is only for people who think like I do. And it works because, as I see it, God is the one who created and set up the universe. So certain laws apply. Like the things that work through spinal network analysis, I don't get any kind of feeling of any weird anything. There's no weird energy going on there. So I just want to say,
Becky, I want to know how you got into what you're doing. I'm moderating this one here. I want to hear how you got into what you do. I'm really interested.
Okay.
And thanks.
But didn't you guys appreciate my comments on the spinal network analysis?
We did. Thank
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do, because the truth is, the more perspectives you can have on something that is so different, that lacks a bit of context in mainstream society, the better. So thank you.
Okay. So good. Now, all right. So I come from a family of, my mother was a registered nurse. She went off out of St. George, South Carolina when she was 16. She hopped down to Charleston and went to nursing school. And as soon as she could weighed the scales at 100 pounds. She joined the Navy as a Navy lieutenant nurse. She was the one who really got us. My dad was a Navy lieutenant, a Navy corpsman, and that's how they met. But my dad is a pharmacist. And so you had that kind of mixture of interest in scientific things. And my mom was the one who really started reading Adele Davis books. Let's beat cancer. Let's do this. Let's have healthy children. She got us all on all these supplements, when we were teenagers, and she would make us, we were going off to play rehearsal or whatever in the evening as kids in high school. And she'd send us off with like bran and banana and brewer's yeast and, all this stuff. So she was the one who got us into that. When I was 16, I read her copy of Let's Have Healthy Children, Adele Davis's Let's Have Healthy Children. And that changed, I was so inspired by that because Adele Davis was a biochemist who worked with ranchers, who observed that pregnant women, human women, feed themselves so poorly as opposed to how ranchers feed their livestock because that's their livelihood. And so she put a lot of science in there that really appealed to my DNA and my curiosity. But it really inspired me with the understanding that if you know what to do, you have a lot more control than what most people think they have when it comes to their health. And so that was really my inspiration. So maybe
Awesome.
we'll get back to that.
Awesome. So you were born into it, kind of.
Yeah.
It's been a lifelong thing for you.
Yep.
Your
He's
father-
or Allison, yeah. Tell us.
Well, I was curious, if you don't mind going on a bit longer, Becky, your father was a well-known herbalist in Keene, wasn't he?
My dad, compounding pharmacist. So, he did bring in many botanical things later in his career. And we were fantastic colleagues in later years. But my father was a clinician. He would look at a person's problem and say, what can I concoct? What can I make, to help that? And so I got that DNA. I've always had that. And that's what is really behind my herbalism. I didn't want to go into traditional pharmacy because I didn't want to have to go through all the ropes of the pharmacy I don't agree with. And my father didn't agree with a lot of it either. He said to me 20 years ago, Becky, the drugs they're coming out with today, quite frankly, scare me to death. He would try to talk people out of filling their prescriptions. So when appropriate. And so, so that's kind of it. I guess I'm doing compounding pharmacy, but within the realm of all botanical things. But it's in the same vein.
Awesome.
Well, we combine them both.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Who wants to go next? TC, you want to share how you got into chiropractic? And you're muted right now.
Right. Yes. So I was working in like customer service positions when I got out of college, and I have a communications degree, professional writing as my undergrad, I guess my first undergrad, and just really didn't enjoy doing it. I was just not having fun, and realized when I was 26, I hated my life. And I was like, well, I'm really too young to do that. And a lot of, the mindset at that time was you just get a job to pay the bills so that you can live, right? And I don't know, that just wasn't good enough for me. And when I was in college, I did see a chiropractor. I had a shoulder injury due to playing tennis collegially. And so that was kind of cool. So I had tapped into chiropractic in my early 20s. And then once I got out of it, I was still having issues. And so my mom took me to her chiropractor, and I was like, all right, cool, this is fun. And then in my job, someone had sent me an email, just someone I worked with had sent an email about how food can be your medicine. So like the whole Hippocrates idea, and like, it was a very eye-opening email about like walnuts. If you look at a walnut has like the little crevices and everything, and it looks like a brain, and walnuts are really good for brain health. Or if you look at an avocado, if you cut an avocado in half and you look at it open, it has the little ball, the little seed in there, and that looks like a womb. And avocados are really good for reproductive and womb health. And like a carrot, you cut a carrot in half and it looks like an eye, and carrots are really good for the eyes. And then a clump of grapes, if you put it all together, it looks like the chambers of the heart, and grapes are really good for the heart. So I was like, wow, this is really cool. And so I ended up talking to my chiropractor about it, and he's like, well, if you want to do nutrition, like if you're getting into that, he goes, Life University in Georgia has an undergrad nutrition program. And I was like, I might have to check that out. And I was like, okay, go back to school, mid-late 20s. Sure, why not? So I ended up quitting my job. I moved back home, and I started going to nutrition. Well, it happened to be obviously at Life, which is a chiropractic school. And I started going to everything chiropractic because it's all free for students. And I really started going to the philosophy programs that were every quarter and then every night. And I just started listening to the message. And, the body, they always say the power that made the body heals the body. You are capable of anything. And it really started making me think. And I've never had like major health issues, a few things here and there, but it just started resonating with me. Like you were saying, Jean, there's more to it than just a symptom, because health is wholeness, and wholeness is chemical, physical, emotional, spiritual, life enjoyment, connection, and being whole in and of ourselves. And I feel like as we've grown up and have been programmed over the last decades, we've gotten away from that and trusting that we do have the ultimate healing capacity. And we, like Becky, like I didn't want to go into the traditional pharmacy because that's not really it. There's natural ways to heal things. And so that really resonated with me. And then finally, like I had it all in my head, like I really want to go to chiropractic school, and kind of knew that my family wouldn't be really open to it. So I did tell them, and then they were like, okay, like weren't really happy about it. So we didn't really talk for a week. And then my parents went off to a trip in France or somewhere. And I was like, yeah, I either ruined that trip or they just forgot all about it. I don't know. Hopefully the latter. And they came back, and I guess they had talked about it or whatever. And they were pretty supportive of the process. Cause I told them, I was like, I got accepted to the school in South Carolina. I'm moving in 3 weeks. Sorry, I had to do what I had to do, because in my mindset, if I didn't try, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life. And so I had to take that big leap of faith that I wasn't going to get disowned or hated. And I'm telling you, it was one of the best decisions. So 9 years later, I did a nutrition program, and then I went to chiropractic school for 9 years I was in school, late 20s, early 30s. And
nice. I thought you were only 29.
29.
I was going to say, how old are you? Like 70?
I feel
Closer to 40 than you think. I just don't act like it. Chiropractic, baby.
I'm sure your parents are extremely proud of you now.
Yeah, they are. And
Allison, what do you, I know I knew you, I think when you were going to school or just finishing up school.
Yeah.
How you what influenced you to go to, that study acupuncture and Chinese medicine?
I've always loved science, and I was a biology major at Northeastern University in Boston, and I was on the pre-med track. I didn't really have any interest in continuing to med school, but I was open to it, and that's what all my classmates were doing. And it was a co-op program, so we would work half-time and go to school half-time. So I took a job as a medical assistant, and I worked in a hospital in a pediatric office. And I was there for a total of I worked there a little bit after college too, 6 or 7 years. So I saw all facets of it. I was a medical assistant, but I did some financial stuff in the back office. And I knew from like the first year that it wasn't for me. I did not like the hospital setting. One of the biggest things was that the patients, when they were sick, they'd only get scheduled for 15 minutes with the doctor. And you would see they'd ask the same questions to the kids over and over, no matter what their circumstances at home or anything. They'd just do the routine questioning, and they'd get like the same pharmaceuticals would get prescribed over and over again. You'd see the pharmaceutical representatives come in and schmooze with the doctors and bring you all this stuff to suck up. And I'm like, this is just not for me. And yeah, we'd have the same, these are kids, right? And you'd think that most kids are pretty healthy and they need like regular checkups. But we would see the same kids over and over and over again. And we'd have 7 or 8-year-old kids with, it was paper charts. It was before electronic healthcare records. And they'd have paper charts like this big. Some of them would have like 2 paper charts of all of their doctor's visits. And I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. You know, why are they keep coming to the hospital and to the doctor and they're not getting better? They have to keep coming. That's not what healthcare is about. So by that point, like halfway through college, I knew I wanted to be in healthcare, but I knew I didn't want to be in Western healthcare. And so I started exploring different options, and I started off with acupuncture because I knew what it was. I didn't know anything about it. But my mom had she had worked like a part-time job for New York, Acupuncture Society of New York. And she did like mailing and letters, and I would go and help her when I was in middle school and do like envelopes. And I'd see all like the Chinese names and stuff, because back then it was really only Chinese practitioners. And I was always just interested about it. And my brother had broken his ankle, and this is when we were younger. And so my mom had brought him in to see somebody that she had worked for in that society. And my brother had told me, yeah, he put a needle in my ear and the pain went away in my ankle. And that always stuck with me. Wow. So when I was kind of figuring out, when I was kind of figuring out what I was going to do, I started experiencing acupuncture, and I went. And I didn't have really a main complaint. I thought I was really healthy and I thought I felt really good. But I started going once a week, and I kept going because I just felt really good after every session. And I'm like, this is great. I like this. So I kept going, and it was like a month and a half of just like weekly treatments. And the first thing I realized was I'm not getting in a fight with my boyfriend anymore. My PMS, like my menstrual cycles would just come and go, and I was waking up like refreshed, and I was like having energy to go to the gym after my classes, and I was just like in a good mood all the time, and I wasn't as stressed. I just like felt really good. And then I'm like, okay, I think there's something to this. And I started learning about it, and it just made common sense. There's a language to Chinese medicine that explains everything, anything that you look at in the universe, in society, in nature, in our bodies, it explains it. And if you speak that language, you see it everywhere, and it makes common sense. And I went to school for it after I took a year off ski bumming. Actually, 2 years. I mean,
who's counting? Who's counting?
Yeah, it was
recovery time.
It was an
awesome.
And the first couple of years of my grad school program, I was so Western medicine oriented, growing up in New York and having a family that didn't know anything about Chinese medicine at all, that I would always think more needles, the better, the more aggressive, let's hook up the electricity to it. And the first year I was like skeptical. I'm like, they're just getting better because they're like lying on the table relaxing, And then as there's a 4-year program of graduate school, and when I started getting treatments routinely, and I'd start to feel like I'd learned the pathways in the textbook, and then I would get a needle and I'd feel that pathway all the way, the needle would be in my wrist and I'd feel it all the way at my arm, right from the textbook. And I'm like, okay. Thank God, because it was a lot of money. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. That's a neat.
Nice.
Matt, let's hear from you on this. I know
Sure. I
that,
love,
I was gonna say, I remember Matt before you went to chiropractic school because I got to see him as a practice member.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, before choosing this profession, was a practice member of Dr. Jean's, along with Dr. Rich, who Dr. Teese and I ended up buying a practice from. And man, Jean's an excellent practitioner. So if you haven't been to see him, accolades there. Really appreciate your work, sir.
Thank you.
And I think it's been so wonderful hearing all of you talk. And for me, if I look back over this whole thing, it's kind of the stepping stones in life, really, for me. So it kind of like, this is sort of like moving forward, looking back. So I'm stepping forward, looking back right now. And I was really lucky to kind of come into the planet at a perfect time and into a family that was really, really wonderful. My dad was a passionate musician, working professionally. My mother was a creative artist and a lover of nature and all things small and mysterious. And so I just grew up with this amazing cradle and hoop of passion and creativity, and love and encouragement. And I really just had the most amazing childhood. And we had thousands of acres out our backyard. And there were rivers and streams and fields and, hillsides and deep woods and wildlife. And at the same time, in a town that had everything that you needed. It was very well to do. It was kind of a sleeper town of Boston and southern New Hampshire. And there was lots of fancy cars and Ivy League flags and all of that stuff. And so I had kind of the full spectrum, and then was given the opportunity at graduation to either go to college like a good boy or fail, which was basically sort of the mantra in my town. So I was like, well, I guess if I have to go to college, I'm going to go to college for music, because that was one of my loves. And I remember my mother being very excited about that. My father being like, oh, really? And only because he'd worked as a professional musician for years, and he knew how hard it was. And so he it didn't take him more than a couple seconds to just, like, in that same moment, warm up immediately and say, well, take some business classes if you're going to go. And well, I ended up taking pre-medical classes along the way. And I've always kind of looked toward what it is that I could do to make as big of an impact as possible. Growing up with music, that made a huge impact, that connected people with other people and brought about an amazing feeling, and really just this beautiful, I don't even know what to call it, just that ness that music brings about when it's at such a high level. And then I went to the Hart School of Music, and Jackie McLean, who is one of the innovators of hard bop on the alto sax. I mean, this guy just pushed the envelope like you wouldn't believe. He was from Harlem, and he was a member of the Black Panthers back in the day, and the dude was just so on point. And I learned so much from him, and he opened my world in ways I'd never thought possible. And I ended up in a post-grad program and moving toward medical school, and there was such a knot in my gut, and I couldn't do it. I dropped out 3 weeks later. I moved to New York City, and I played music for the next 7 years. And one of the best decisions I ever made was following that intuition. So I found myself surrounded by musicians and the creatives, and also revolutionary writers, Argentinians, Mexicans, and people from the States, and just this unbelievable sort of like mix of all of these minds and these passions in life that opened my mind even further to all of these things. And then a mentor of mine, who some of you may know out there, Dr. Chick Weatherby, who has run and work at the Earthward Natural Foods in Amherst. If you've never dropped in to talk with that man, highly recommended. What a gift he is to the community. And he opened my eyes too to what's possible in terms of healing. I didn't really grow up with that. We grew up healthy, but not like that. And also kind of taught me a little bit more in depth about the woods. He showed me what animal tracking was, and how to listen to the subtle signs that are all around us in creation. And found myself studying with a master tracker for a long time, which helped my brain to rewire. And when that happened, I realized that it was connection ultimately that brought about health. So the more connection you have, the healthier you're going to be, because the more access you're going to have to different things. And that's what tracking at a very high level on the landscape would precipitate. And so I thought, wow, I've never seen bigger change in other humans than I do when they are truly alive. They're fire, all their senses are engaged. You know, there's a sixth sense that comes about. They're passionate, they're helpful, they're fully engaged. I mean, we're talking like teenagers, right? So just, it kind of blew my mind. So I found myself quickly teaching also, because I thought that was, knew that was making a big difference. And then you just continue to evolve. So after that, it was moving into management, started running those programs all up and down the East Coast because I could affect even more people that way. And it was at that time that I was running myself into the ground because I believed in what I was doing. I was giving 110% of myself. I was also in denial of a number of increasingly health and increasingly like vital attention health concerns, such as Lyme disease, a bunch of other co-infections, gut issues, all sorts of things. So I was really kind of like running myself right into the dirt. When a couple of coworkers of mine started seeing this woman, Donna, and I didn't know who Donna was or what she did, but I'll tell you what, when those two got back from their lunchtime sessions with Donna, they were light on their feet, their hearts were high, their eyes were sparkling. They had something that I knew that if I had that, I'd be better at doing what I'm here to do. And so I remember asking, hey, I don't know who this Donna woman is, but do you think I could go see her? And their response was, I don't know, she's pretty busy. Which in retrospect is like, you ever tell a kid, well, I don't think so. You're not old enough yet. You know, it's like being told you're not old enough. I was like, what? I'm going to see Donna. So I went in there and I remember walking up to the front door and seeing chiropractor on her sign as we were walking up. And then I knew nothing about chiropractic. I only had one friend of a family that had a really horrible experience. Unfortunately, the doc happened to miss a metastasis. Could have happened to anybody. You know, I know that now, but at the time it was like, no, that's bad. And anyway, my buddy Jorge just said, no, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. She's different. And anyway, I got myself under care. It changed my life. And I didn't know that it was changing my life at first, but I started, like you were talking about, Allison, just suddenly like getting more energy and starting to engage in these self-care practices, and then starting to take seriously that, you know what, I do have some health concerns that I might want to start addressing. So I was doing my job better. I was taking better care of myself. And then everything sort of ended. The job came to a close. And I had found myself on 6 months of really quest time. And I took it back to the woods and I spent a lot of time in prayer and meditation on what to do next. And at the end of 6 months, it was so clear that doing the work that I do today is where it was at. And I haven't looked back since. It's been the best decision that I've ever made.
Wow.
Awesome. Another guy, you must be like, what, 99 years old? You have this like lifetimes of experience there that brought you to where you are.
Dr. Jean,
Yeah.
I want to ask you. All right, so you explained to us that, but then you have a further journey. You had your own health problems and things like that. Don't you think that adds into your story?
Yeah, I'll just real quickly, you know, again, I was just like, you know, similar to Dr. Zabatelli, you know, had found this really amazing work. And it was, you know, from the standpoint of I really have to say more like my spiritual growth, my development as a human being, it was unbelievable. But at the same time, you know, due to a lot of different circumstances, I think my body was breaking down, and you know, I was really having a lot of health challenges, and you know, I really need to look more into, you know, some other areas, a little bit more into the biochemical realm and toxicities that I had sustained, and pathogens, like Matt was saying, you know, some stealth pathogens and bugs and things. And, you know, it just kind of brought me into the realm of doing a more functional approach, which is kind of looking at that and using some of the same principles really that we've been talking about here this morning in the body and the body's energy, and really using the body as a guidepost to see how we can, you know, see where the challenges are and see how we can help, you know, maybe remove some of those challenges so that the body can get to do what it needs to do. So, you know, kind of in this second segment here, we're talking about, like, you know, there's people, I think, I mean, obviously there's a huge variety of different philosophies in any given profession. But when you think about medicine, there's the idea that, okay, medical doctors use chemicals to treat people. We don't like that. We're more natural. And so what we're going to do is use an herb to do the same thing. And I think that's where we kind of differ a little bit, because it's not just about using a natural product to accomplish the same goal as your medical doctor would with a chemical product, but really to honor what's happening in the body, trust and understand that every symptom that the body has is really not something that's wrong with the body, but really something that's right with the body. If you ingest a poison, you want to vomit it out, or if you have stuff in your gut, sometimes you need diarrhea, and sometimes you need to raise your temperature to fight off pathogens and burn off toxins. And all these things that happen, again, in our sort of westernized culture, a lot of people are automatically think, these are bad, we've got to stop these things from happening. And so, again, this sort of came from my background in network, really understanding it's like the body is this amazing thing. It's so smart. Why would it's doing something to try to help itself? And, I think where we can intervene and say, okay, you have this symptom, and if it's a chronic symptom, that means the body's been trying and trying and trying to get over this thing, but it's obviously getting stuck somewhere. And so that's where you may want to take that and say, okay, how can we help the body, get something out of the way? And that something could be that stress and that self-sabotage or whatever that people have, or it could be that toxin, or it could be that, stuff that's fillings that are in their mouth, or it could be, there's so many different things. And so just, I think, my philosophy is you just want to look at the picture, the big picture, and give a person the best possible chance to experience their optimal well-being and function, and so that they can really contribute their gifts to the world. And so I think that's my gift. And, I think since we're running a little long time, I'll just say really quickly, kind of like my big picture is like, and I wrote a book called The Wellness Effect. And it's really, the idea is that, these things that we're talking about, our personal health and our personal health decisions in the products we buy and the philosophies that we purport and share with our family, it affects not only us, but it affects the people around us. It affects our community. And as we're seeing today, it's affecting the whole world. And so if we are all stuck in this philosophy is we don't trust this body, we're scared of symptoms, we need a vaccination or something to be able to function well, the whole society right now is gripped in this fear just from that different philosophical slant. And so I think, and I don't know, maybe nobody on this panel agrees with me here, but I think as people who understand and trust in this amazing body and how it functions, we are like preachers, almost like a Christian or whatever, like a preacher, and you want to have an understanding you could share with somebody, because it will change their life, just changing their viewpoint, just changing the understanding of the dynamic of how the body works, and not having to live in fear has a huge, and is having a huge impact on all of society. And so I think that's where my passion lies, is not only in that individual person, because all of us know the feeling of helping somebody and how amazing that feels, and that it's an insatiable thing that you can never get enough of, and you'll keep on doing it, right? But the bigger picture is, how is this having an impact? And as a parent, I want, I'm concerned about my children. I want this to be a better world for my children. And so that's kind of what drives me.
Yeah.
Answer the question. I hope I didn't go too long.
But
I'd kind of like to hear what drives you all in your practices, and what you're really after. What's your big picture?
Well, I was just going to take you down a little bit up the path in my biography. So as I was a little child, I want to say like 5 years old. Okay. This was back in the day. We had woods behind our house with paths. And it was a day and age where your parents didn't really mind that you were out on your own. And so this is a part of my life nobody else but me and God have any remembrance of, but it was huge in my life. So when you're little, when you're just a few feet high and you're running up a path through the woods, you're seeing every single plant. Okay, so you're seeing the ferns and the spearmint leaves and the this and the that. And you're not shy, so you might taste them, you might, whatever. And so we had through our woods, it was cool, come from the back of the house, there was a great path I'm telling you, I'm like 5 years old. So this is very, very just me. And I'm all by myself, and you run up there and I see all these different plants like the ferns and all that stuff. And then if you got up this far, there was a big pit of stumps, and it was all these dead stumps. So you had bark and all that kind of stuff, and mushrooms growing and all this stuff. So you could go into that wondrous room. And then you would go this way, and there was actually a sand pit. That was not nearly so interesting, but I would say that's where there was a big spark for the love of nature. And I still have that great passion for, like Matt was saying, observing nature. I mean, this morning I've already, I talked to squirrels, they talked to me, of the birds, I'll scold the squirrel for getting my bird feeder, and he says, Becky, I know you love me, so I'm not really too upset when you clap and try to scare me. And the rustle of the wind or the smell of whatever it is. I think nature has spoken to us all. And so nature was a huge thing for me. And then going on from that, when I was a young mother, I started a medical transcription business. And so that put me as a fly on the wall to so many doctor's appointments where things were not getting done. And not criticizing anyone, but how disappointing to go through medical school and all that takes and requires in so many ways, and then just keep getting the 15-minute visit of somebody with this and prescribing an antibiotic or this or that. I mean, that's not why people got into medicine, and I think it's really disappointing for a lot of mainstream practitioners today, because it's very discouraging. But so that was like really cool, because I was fly on the wall to all of these things, and I could really evaluate, got to learn a lot about medications and pharmacology and all of that. So that was another thing, but that's when I started just doing correspondence school with Clayton College of Natural Health. I saw an ad in a magazine, and I just started doing that, and that's what eventually led to, was a big part of where I am today. Yeah.
And we're getting close, but I think if we go over a little, I think it's okay, but because I really want to hear, from the standpoint of, from the rest of the colleagues here, what is really your big picture? What's driving you? What's your soul's purpose here? That's an easy one.
I really love creating like an environment. If anybody is into astrology, take it or leave it, but I'm a Cancer, and I've lived in 7 states. I've lived in so many different places, and I was at boarding school, so my dorm would always change, and my college dorms, and I've moved in. The very first thing I always do is like decorate. Like before anything else gets done, I need some sort of like poster on the wall or whatever. I always have like rocks somewhere and feathers or something like from the earth in my room. And I love creating like an environment in a space. And my dad was a New York City salesman. He was very high strung. And when the phone would ring, it would, there'd be profanities, and it was very like, whoa, kind of household growing up in. And I've always wanted to kind of counterbalance that with like, okay, we need like a calming environment and like, need to like de-stress. So I really love creating that environment for people and learning about Chinese medicine and the yin and the yang. I always talk about this in this podcast, but like our culture is so yang. We're so go, go, go. And like we just have so many things on our plate all the time that we really don't have a space to like just process things. And we don't often give ourselves the time to just absorb and integrate and just heal and be and let things flow. So yeah, that's one thing I really love about what I can do and having my own business. I moved into this suite right across the street from the library in downtown Keene, and I've got 3 treatment rooms, and I created a back room that I call the Zen room, and it has an amethyst fire mat on it, and it's just purely for like integrating and relaxing after your treatment. And it's a nice just space where you can just be and heal and do what your body needs best. So that's one of the biggest drives. And then obviously the medical aspect, and just educating people that there are other options. I think that we are so inundated with, you go to the doctor, something's wrong, you go to the doctor, but it's only one viewpoint. It's only one language of medicine, and it's a very young language of medicine. It's excellent for emergency care, and it has so many strengths, but there's so many different perspectives, and there's so many different cultures and different takes on it, like all of our individual viewpoints. And I love to my favorite type of patient is someone that's never had acupuncture before, that doesn't think it's going to work. And, I love watching the process unfold, and they're just amazed. And it's such a powerful thing to change someone's frame of mind and give them other options. So, yeah.
Awesome.
You're here. I agree with that.
Yeah.
How about you, Dr. Tisa?
So I a lot of piggybacking on what Allison was saying. It's just like, it's giving somebody something different and giving them hope that it doesn't have to stay the way that it is. Because so many people feel like they're absolutely stuck in whatever relationship, financial situation, health concern, family. It doesn't matter where they're at. Everything changes. You're not the same person as you were when you were 5, right, Becky? You're totally 4, 5, 6 versions of yourself past that.
No,
right?
but you still are the same person. That's why I keep this picture of myself.
Oh, you're so cute.
No, I'm telling you, you are still the same essential person in your spirit, and you have to always account to yourself.
Well, essentially, yes.
Yeah,
but you're still a different version. You're always changing. You're not physiologically, you're not the same person, because every 7 years you change.
well, maybe, but the essence of your person, I believe, it's there.
Yes, you definitely hold.
I look into these eyes, and it keeps me honest.
What would I be telling little Becky is what she's asking.
I know. Or what would little Becky be telling me?
Or what would little Becky be telling me?
That's the more important
Let's
thing.
play. Let's stop working and let's play.
Yeah, let's do something fun. Yeah, I agree with that. So knowing that things don't have to stay the same and giving them something different. And when I was doing nutrition, and I have the degree, I have a dietetics degree, and I was working in hospitals and like WIC programs, and I kind of saw like the same thing that you guys have experienced. Like, people aren't getting better. Like, really what somebody probably needs is a freaking hug, and that's like not even the personal aspect of what you would give them in that environment. And so my mindset was like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink for the most part, and that's how I felt at the time. Nutrition was leading just people, because in a hospital, someone who just had a diabetic attack, they just want to know what their test results are. They don't want to talk about, I need to change my diet now, and I need to eat bland foods, and what is this? Like, they didn't care. It was all reactive, and that didn't make any sense to me. And hearing the chiropractic message of being proactive with our whole thing, like changing the viewpoint that Allison was talking about, which is, I think, what we all do. We show them something different, and that the change in our internal environment can really affect our external environment. And we have a lot of people who see that. We have one particular practice member who's amazing, and she's really like breaking through in so many different ways, and super excited. And we were talking to her about her family. Like, you want to get your family? And she's like, I do. And I don't know if I can convince my husband, but I really want my children under care. And it's like, it's not a convincing thing. It's an experience. They have to experience it on their own, and everybody's experience is different. And I know I left a 5-year relationship when I started getting under network care. I was in a 5-year relationship with someone I really wanted at the time to be with, and it just wasn't working. And finally I got the courage and the willpower to be like, I'm better than this. I know what I want. And as scary as it was, I was a year out from graduating, as scary as it was going, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't even know. It was like moving into chiropractic school. It was like scary, 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 but man, it overcomes, and I wouldn't change anything because now I'm with Dr. Matt and life is awesome and everything can change. It really can. And I want to give people that hope to know that they're not stuck.
I think that's the big message from me, is that we've talked about it. Allison, you were talking about it, Matt, Tisa, all of us. It is informing people and giving them the tools, the broader tools to make better decisions for themselves, to make better decisions. And it's not like we're saying you got to do it this way or whatever, but it's like, wow, if you knew about that, what difference would that make? But if all you're hearing is this one model that's saying, bam, ba, bam, ba, bam, then you just feel helpless. You feel like, okay, it's my genetics. Okay, there's cardiovascular disease. There's Alzheimer's in my family. There's this, there's that. That's totally off the table if you know how to use these other modalities. You have so much more power than you think you do. And I think that's the message all of us want to give to everybody we're working with, is you have so much more power than you know you do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's really, the next step. And just to pick up at the end of, what both of you ladies are talking about here is that, I'm a big picture person. My mind is always on the horizon and tracking back to where I am currently. And the focus for me, the mission, is to help as many people as possible get well and stay well, specifically so that they can step up in their lives. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean step up for themselves, for their families, for their communities, for their businesses, for their nation, and even for their future generations. And there's never been a more important time to step up for the future generations than there is now. And ultimately, we're going to do that by creating connection. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was running tracking programs, so here's two stories. First one is, we were doing a public school program that was running for a couple of years, it was a public school in Harlem, and we were taking them into Central Park, and we were running some nature and tracking programs with them. Now, these kids live 4 blocks away from Central Park, but had never been in Central Park. You know why? Because there's bears in there. So you don't go into Central Park.
Because there's bears in there?
There's bears in there.
Bears.
Yep. That's what the kids were told, which, to be fair, in the north, sort of like eastern corner of Central Park, not really where you'd want your little kids running around. So fair enough, there's bears in there. And they hadn't been in there, and they lived 4 blocks away. And I remember this one boy coming running up to me, and it had rained the night before, and he had been playing with his friends and fallen down. He had grass on his hands, and he came up with his hands open, like wide-eyed. He had grass on his hands, and he didn't know what it was. We're not playing here. Like, he was like, he just froze and showed me what is this? You have to come over and make some connection, grass, and get your hands on his hands and love him up. But holy cow. Mm-hmm. Holy cow. So if you don't have connection with something, how could you ever hope to protect it or to grow it into something better? It's impossible. It's impossible. So the second story, for contrast here, we ran a months-long summer camp at this beautiful camp, a couple hours north of New York City. And we had this intern program that went all summer long for these teenagers. And so we were doing a lot of rite of passage stuff then. We were facilitating vision quests for the kids, and we had mentors. I mean, it was thick. It's a thick program, and still running today, actually. So Children of the Earth Foundation, great one. So anyway, there was this young man, he was 13, and he came in, kind of a hotshot athlete kid. Obviously, things were fairly easy, and he was super green. He wanted to learn he wanted to know how to make fire by rubbing sticks together. He wanted to know how to fashion his own clothes, and he wanted to know how to, make his own shelter. But, it was just an idea from a book or something. But by the end of the season, he'd really grown into a new version of himself entirely. And the moment for me that really hit home was when, and this is the saddest day, is when, and yet the most happy, when the kids go home. So it's the final closing ceremony of the whole season. And it's so meaningful. It's profound. Everyone's coming together, and now it's time to say goodbye. And I remember it was just after that, and the parents are screaming in to pick up their kids, and a lot of them are coming from, you know, their sales jobs in New York City or whatever. So they show up into this environment now, and here is all of these kids that have been deeply immersed in a connective nature routine for almost 2 months. And I'll never forget, Dad comes in and he's all sorts of jittery, and he's looking for the son, and who knows what happened on the way there. And I remember that this young man came up and he met his dad, and there was still all this jitter and chaos with Father, and they turned and they walked down the trail together. And as they walked down the trail, I saw that 13-year-old kid put his hand on his dad's shoulder in a way that the entire physiology of that man melted. And they walked down that path in like absolute harmony and connection in that one moment.
Whoa.
That was such a turning point for me. And I realized that it's not about age or about what you've accomplished or anything else. It has to do with the connection that you have. How many little wisps of connection have turned into strings, that have turned into ropes. Beautiful book, Ropes to God, if you're curious about that process, and how profound that can be. And when you are able to facilitate that in people, what they're able to do then in their own lives, when they get well and they stay well and they step up for themselves and their communities, their nations, their future generations, it's the best shot we've got, and we are here till the very last second.
Yeah, well said.
Awesome. You know, as all of you were speaking here today, I think, you know, what I got from every of the connection is that it no matter whether it's, you know, nature and you know, that experience you just described, Matt, and same thing with Allison, how you observed what was happening. And there's like this spiritual piece, you know, whatever you want to call it, nature or spirit, but there is that connection to, you know, I think what we all know is truth, which is what is inside us, you know, which is what connects us all. And I think it's really what drives most holistic minded, vitalistic practitioners like yourselves. So awesome to hear all your stories. Anybody want to wrap up with anything else? They got to get out.
I just want to say, all right. I want to say, embrace your inner child.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I mean, I hug myself figuratively because I get me and I have compassion for me. So a lot of people, you're born, you are who you are. Maybe people like scribbled on your slate and really messed you up. I didn't have abuse, but a lot of people did have really bad things. A lot of people have negative self-talk that was never meant to be from the way you were made. So I say, get in touch with your inner self and let your true person reveal itself wherever you are in life right now.
Beautiful, Becky. It's your birthright.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Beautiful.
Thanks for entertaining us today. That was really awesome.
I have so many more questions for the rest of you. And I want to talk future about music when it comes to this kind of art, because there's a big overlap in music and the healing arts. Huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That's a great topic.
And music is one of those things that helps me connect to my soul for sure.
Yep.
Well, next, when we do our music webinar, I want an intro, a guitar intro.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll compete, or maybe, you know, whatever.
We could
We'll
just
all
have
be
a
on
band.
different things. We'll all be different things. And Allison, you're harmonica, right?
Yeah.
All
Hey,
right.
you know how they do that thing where there's people all over the world chiming in, they somehow stream it all together and do a song?
We can just meet up in the loft at my place and start our Proactive Health Collective of Keene band. I think we've got all the pieces in place. Yeah. So we'll talk
Good
about
to
that
me.
another day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love you all this much.
So many
Yeah,
things.
thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you got something out of it. We'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.